wind screamed across the wasteland like something alive and furious. Jason Rowe tightened the last cable on the rusted antenna, his hands raw from the cold metal when the sky split open above him. Lightning didn't fall. It crawled, branching across the sand in veins of white-hot glass that left after-images burned into his vision. He dropped flat against the roof of his hut, palms scraping corrugated steel, pulse hammering in his throat. Then he heard it. Not thunder, engines, a roar that cut through the wind like a blade. He twisted around, squinting through the dust cloud, rolling toward him like a wall. 3 figures burst through it, cloaked, moving fast, weapons slung low across their backs. Their eyes caught the stormlight, glowing pale green behind cracked goggles. Huntresses, corporate deserters, the kind tiring security shot on sight. The lead one barked over the wind, voice distorted by a respirator. "Shelter! Now!" Jason scrambled to his feet, wrench still clutched in his fist. "One more step, and you die." The smallest one, a woman he thought, though the dust made it hard to tell, pulled down her mask. Dark eyes met his, unblinking. Her face was young, scarred along the jaw, streaked with sand. Then live or die alone. Your choice. Thunder hit like a physical blow. The roof groaned, metal shrieking as one corner tore free. Jason felt the wind try to rip him off his feet. He stepped back. "Get inside." They didn't wait for a second invitation. The 3 of them crashed through his door in a tangle of limbs and weapons, bringing half the storm with them. Sand poured across his floor. The wind slammed the door so hard the frame cracked. Jason threw his weight against it, forcing the bolt home, and the world outside became muffled, still furious, but distant now. Inside, the air was thick and hot. His generator hummed in the corner, struggling. The huntresses spread out immediately, instinct taking over. The leader, tall, broad-shouldered, with a plasma cutter strapped to her thigh, moved to the window, peering through the gaps in the shutters. Another one, wiry and silent, checked the corners, hand on a sidearm. The small one who'd spoken stood in the center, breathing hard, eyes locked on Jason. "Nia," she said, not an introduction, a warning. Jason kept the wrench visible. "What are you running from?" The leader didn't turn. 2 dead, 1 missing. We move at dawn." The lights flickered. The generator whined, pitched higher, then cut to silence. Total blackout. Someone screamed in the dark. Jason's heart kicked hard. He couldn't see anything, couldn't hear over the sound of his own pulse and the wind battering the walls. He dropped low, wrench raised, trying to orient himself in the sudden void. A hand grabbed his wrist, fast, strong, twisting the weapon out of his grip before he could react. "Don't!" Nia's voice close enough to feel her breath. "We're not here to hurt you." "Then let go." She did. The wrench clattered to the floor. Then she said it, quiet, but carrying weight that made the air itself feel heavier. "I saw him first. Mine." The storm froze mid-roar, as if even the wind obeyed her voice. Jason fumbled for the emergency lantern he kept under the console, fingers shaking. He found it, cranked the handle, and weak yellow light spilled across the room. The huntresses were exactly where they'd been before. The leader at the window, the silent one by the door. Nia in the center, watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "Who screamed?" Jason asked. The leader turned, face grim. "Kess. Thought she saw something move." The silent one, Kess, was pale, eyes wide. She pointed at the corner near the ceiling where shadows pooled. "There was something, I swear." Jason followed her gaze. Nothing. Just old wiring and rust stains. "Storm's getting to you," the leader said. Not unkind, but final. Nia moved closer to Jason, arms crossed. "How long until it passes?" 6 hours, maybe 8. He set the lantern on the console, trying to steady his hands. "Depends how angry she wants to be." "She?" "The desert. She throws these every few weeks. Tears up everything that's not bolted down." He gestured at the walls. "This place used to be a relay station, back when Tyrant X still cared about the outer grid." The leader's eyes narrowed. "You work for them?" "Used to. Contract ended 3 years ago. They never came back to collect the equipment." Jason shrugged. "So I kept it." "And they let you?" They forgot about me. Nia studied him, head tilted. No one forgets a relay station. Not out here. Then maybe they decided I wasn't worth the fuel to retrieve. Jason moved toward the console, keeping his movements slow and obvious. You want heat? Power? I can get the generator running again. The leader stepped between him and the controls. Stay where I can see you. Then freeze. She stared at him for 3 long seconds, then stepped aside. Do it. But if you touch anything that looks like a transmitter, I put a hole through your spine. Jason knelt beside the generator housing, popping the access panel. The smell of hot metal and ozone hit him immediately. A blown capacitor, easy fix. He pulled his toolkit from the shelf, aware of 3 sets of eyes tracking his every move. What are your names? He asked, not looking up. Don't need names for 6 hours, the leader said. Nia crouched beside him, close enough that he felt the heat radiating off her suit. Hers is Saria. You already know mine. Kes doesn't talk much. Smart woman. She lost her tongue 2 years ago, severed during an interrogation. Jason's hands paused on the capacitor. Tyrants? Who else? Nia's voice was soft, but something cold lived underneath it. They wanted to know where our camp was. She wouldn't tell them, so they made sure she'd never tell anyone anything again. He looked at Kes. She was watching him, expression unreadable. Then she nodded once. Jason swallowed and returned to the repair. He pulled the fried capacitor free, replaced it with a spare from his kit, and reconnected the power leads. The generator coughed, sputtered, then caught with a deep rumble. Lights flickered on overhead, weak but steady. Saria relaxed slightly, hand leaving her weapon. Good. Jason stood, brushing dust off his knees. Now you're warm. Happy? We'll see. He moved back to the console to check the power distribution when he saw it. A red light blinking on the corner of the screen. Small, insistent, signal sent. His stomach dropped. Nia saw it too. Her whole body went rigid. What did you just do? Nothing. I didn't. He leaned closer, pulling up the system log. The timestamp showed 30 seconds ago, right when the generator came back online. I didn't send anything. I swear. The red light blinked again. Once. Twice. Saria was beside him in 2 strides, plasma cutter unholstered and humming in her hand. What did you do? The system must have an automatic distress beacon. I didn't know it was active. Deactivate it. I can't. Once it's sent, it's... He stopped. Outside, through the gaps in the shutters, something flickered in the distance. Blue. Rhythmic. Someone's answering. Nia moved to the window, pressed her face against the gap. When she pulled back, her expression had changed. Fear, raw and immediate. Her voice was barely a whisper. I thought you were harmless. How far? Saria demanded. 3 kilometers. Maybe less. Through the static on an abandoned comm unit in the corner came a fragment of transmission, cold and mechanical. Lock all exits. He's with them. 3 kilometers. Maybe less. Saria grabbed Jason by the front of his shirt, slamming him against the console. You called them here. I didn't mean to. You're corporate. You were always going to sell us out. She pressed the plasma cutter against his throat. The heat made his skin prickle. I should end this now. Nia's hand caught Saria's wrist. Wait. For what? For them to arrive? Look at him. Nia's voice was steady. He's terrified. He didn't know. Saria didn't move. Doesn't matter. It matters if we want to survive the next hour. They stared at each other, something unspoken passing between them. Finally, Saria lowered the weapon, shoving Jason away. He stumbled, caught himself against the wall. You're still a hostage, Saria said. You try to run, I kill you. You make a sound when they get here, I kill you. You so much as breathe wrong. I get it. Kes moved to the door, checking the locks. She signed something quick with her hands. Nia translated. She says we have maybe 20 minutes before they breach scanning range. After that, they'll know we're here. Then we leave, Saria said. Into the storm? Nia shook her head. We won't make it 50 meters. We won't make it at all if we stay. Jason found his voice. There's a crawl space under the floor. Leads to an old maintenance tunnel. It floods during storms. But if you can hold your breath, where does it go? 1/2 kilometer east. Comes up in a dead relay tower. They won't check it. Sarya looked at Nia. You believe him? Do we have a choice? The blue strobe pulsed again. Closer now. Jason could almost hear the engines beneath the wind. Show us, Sarya said. Jason pulled up the floor panel near the back wall, revealing a narrow shaft dropping into darkness. Water gleamed at the bottom, reflecting their faces in fragments. It's a straight shot, but you have to go underwater for about 10 meters. Current's strong. Nia peered down. And you're telling us this why? You could let us drown. Because if Tyrant X finds you here, they find me. And they'll want to know why I sheltered deserters. He met her eyes. I fix what's broken. I don't break things further. Sarya made a sound that might have been a laugh. You're either very brave or very stupid. I'm a mechanic. I'm practical. Kes signed something. Nia's expression softened. She says she trusts you. Don't know why. Then let's not waste it. Jason grabbed a waterproof emergency kit from the shelf, stuffed it into Nia's hands. Medical supplies. Flares. You'll need them. Outside, the engines grew louder. The blue strobes painted the walls in pulses. Sarya went first, dropping into the shaft without hesitation. She hit the water with a splash that echoed up through the space. A moment later, her voice floated back, distorted. Current's worse than he said. Kes, you're next. Kes hesitated, looking at Jason. Then she touched 2 fingers to her forehead. A salute or a blessing, he couldn't tell. And dropped. Nia was the last. She stood at the edge, 1 foot already in the shaft, when she turned back. If we die down there, you won't. I want you to know I saw you first. What? But she was gone, swallowed by the darkness. Jason slammed the panel shut, kicked debris over it, and moved back to the console. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely work the controls. He pulled up the beacon log, tried to scramble the signal, make it look like a malfunction. The blue strobes were right outside now, close enough that he could see individual beams cutting through the dust. The door exploded inward. Not opened. Exploded. The bolt tore free in a shower of sparks and the door hit the opposite wall hard enough to crack. 3 figures in tactical armor poured through, rifles up, helmet lights blinding. Dust hissed through the bullet holes, a dry whisper against his ears. Jason raised his hands. Don't shoot. I'm unarmed. The lead soldier, visor reflecting Jason's terrified face back at him, swept the room with his rifle. Where are they? Who? The rifle barrel pressed against Jason's forehead. Hostile signals. 3 targets. This location. Where? I don't know what you're talking about. The soldier glanced at his wrist display. Thermal signatures. Recent. 4 bodies. He looked at Jason. 3 are cooling fast. Moving. Jason's mind raced. The tunnel. They were tracking body heat through the ground. I was alone, he said. Storm knocked out my generator. The heat spike was the restart. The soldier studied him for a long moment. Then he lowered his rifle and spoke into his comm. Control, this is TAC 2. Primary location is dry. Targets are mobile, heading grid east. Request permission to pursue. Static, then a woman's voice. Negative. Storm's too hot. Set up observation. They'll surface eventually. Understood. The soldier looked at Jason. You're coming with us. What? Why? Corporate property, corporate custody. You're a witness. He grabbed Jason's arm. And if you're lying, you're a collaborator. They dragged him outside into the screaming wind. The sand tore at his face, his eyes, his throat. He couldn't see more than a few meters. Dark shapes, vehicles, soldiers, equipment, materialized and vanished in the dust. They shoved him into the back of an armored transport, hands zip-tied behind his back, and slammed the door. The cabin stank of solvent and old sweat. The engine's vibration climbed into his teeth. Through the narrow window, he watched his hut recede into the storm. Then the transport lurched forward and the wasteland swallowed everything. Hours passed in darkness and engine noise and pain. Jason's wrist burned where the plastic ties cut into skin. Every bump in the terrain sent him sliding across the metal floor. No one spoke to him. No one even looked at him. When the transport finally stopped, they hauled him out into cold air and artificial light. Some kind of forward base, prefab structures, generators humming, soldiers moving with purpose. They threw him into a storage container, converted into a cell, cut his restraints, and locked the door. Jason collapsed against the wall, gasping. His whole body ached. Through the gaps in the container walls, he could hear voices. 3 targets confirmed. Huntress patterns. Likely deserters from the broken hand cell. Do we have IDs? Not yet, but they went into the old maintenance tunnel. It's flooded. They'll have to surface at the eastern relay. How long? Storm should clear in 4 hours. We'll have eyes on the exit by then. Good. Captain wants them alive if possible. Dead if necessary. Jason pressed his face against the gap, trying to see. Soldiers moved past, weapons ready. Somewhere in the distance, he heard the rhythmic pulse of a scanner sweeping the terrain. They were going to find Naya and the others the moment they surfaced. He had to warn them. But how? His comm unit. They'd taken his tools, his belt, but not the small emergency transmitter he kept sewn into the lining of his jacket. It had maybe a kilometer range, line of sight only. But if he could get a signal out... Footsteps approached. Jason jerked back from the wall, trying to look defeated. The door opened. A woman stepped inside. Tall, silver hair pulled back, captain's insignia on her collar. She studied him with the kind of cold assessment usually reserved for broken equipment. Jason Rowe, she said. Not a question. Yes. Former Tyrant X communications technician. Contract ended 37 months ago. Current status, abandoned asset. I prefer forgotten. Her mouth twitched, almost a smile. You sheltered 3 hostile combatants tonight. Why? The storm. Don't. She crouched in front of him, eye level. You're not stupid. You knew what they were the moment you saw them. So why let them in? Jason met her gaze. Because leaving someone to die in a storm is murder. And harboring deserters is treason. I didn't know they were deserters. You suspected. He said nothing. The captain stood. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to help us locate those 3 women. You're going to tell us everything they said, everything they touched, every detail you remember. And in exchange, I'll pretend you were an unwilling victim of circumstance. And if I don't, then you're a collaborator. And collaborators don't leave forward bases. Not alive. She waited. Jason felt the weight of the choice pressing down on his chest, crushing the air from his lungs. They didn't tell me anything, he said finally. They forced their way in, threatened to kill me if I didn't cooperate. When the beacon activated, they panicked and ran. Into the tunnel. I don't know, I didn't see. They knocked me down and... He gestured vaguely. Everything happened fast. The captain's expression didn't change. You're lying. I'm not. You're a terrible liar. She turned toward the door. We'll find them regardless. And when we do, we'll see how much they're willing to say to protect you. The door slammed shut. Lock engaged. Footsteps faded. Jason waited 30 seconds, then pulled the transmitter from his jacket lining. It was barely larger than his thumb, casing cracked, battery indicator showing red. Maybe 1 transmission. Maybe. He pressed it against the metal wall, using the container itself as an antenna amplifier, and keyed the emergency frequency. Naya, if you can hear this, don't surface at the eastern relay. They're waiting. Find another way out. I'm sorry. The door exploded open. 2 soldiers grabbed him, slamming him face first into the floor. One of them ripped the transmitter from his hand, crushed it under a boot heel. Idiot, the soldier muttered. They dragged Jason outside, threw him to his knees in the center of the compound. The captain stood in front of him, expression unchanged. I gave you a chance, she said. They're going to die if... Everyone dies eventually. She nodded to the soldiers. Strip him. Check for anything else. They pulled off his jacket, his shirt, searched every pocket and seam. Found nothing. But the damage was done. His transmission had given away the ambush. Assuming Nia was even listening. Assuming she was still alive. The captain leaned down, voice low. You just killed yourself for 3 strangers. Was it worth it? Jason looked up at her, face bruised, lips split. Ask me when they're safe. She straightened. Take him back to the cell. Double guard. No communication. They threw him inside and locked the door. This time they stationed 2 soldiers right outside, rifles ready. Jason lay on the cold metal floor, breathing shallow, tasting blood. Through the walls, he could hear activity ramping up, engines starting, soldiers mobilizing. The storm was clearing. They were getting ready to move. He closed his eyes and tried not to think about Nia's face in the lantern light. Tried not to remember the way she'd said, "I saw you first." Tried not to imagine what would happen when Tarangs found them. But imagination was all he had left. The container shuddered as heavy equipment moved past outside. Jason pushed himself up, head spinning. How long had he been unconscious? Minutes? Hours? The light through the gaps looked different. Paler, steadier. Dawn, maybe. Or the storm finally breaking. He pressed his ear against the wall and listened. Confirmed. 3 heat signatures emerging at secondary access point. Grid north-northeast. Distance? 800 meters and closing. Intercept Team Alpha. Move to position. Shoot to wound. Captain wants them breathing. Jason's chest tightened. They'd found them. Nia had gotten his message. Changed course. But it didn't matter. Tyrants had eyes everywhere. The soldiers outside his door moved away, called to join the intercept. Jason waited until their footsteps faded, then examined the container door. Solid. Locked from the outside. No way through. But containers had ventilation panels. He found it near the ceiling, a grated opening barely wide enough for his shoulders. He stacked everything he could find, empty supply crates, a broken chair, and climbed. The grate was corroded, screws rusted. He worked them loose with his fingers, ignoring the pain as metal tore skin. The grate came free. Jason squeezed through, shoulders scraping, and dropped into the narrow gap between his container and the next. The base sprawled around him, temporary structures, vehicles, soldiers running toward the perimeter. Everyone focused outward. He ran the opposite direction, past generators, past supply dumps, past a communications hub with its door hanging open, abandoned in the rush. Jason ducked inside, scanning the equipment. Most of it was military grade, locked down, useless. But there, a portable scanner unit, left active, showing a tactical overlay of the surrounding terrain. 3 red dots moving north. That was Nia's group. A dozen blue dots converging on their position. And 1 green dot, Jason's own tracking chip, standard Tyrant X employee implant, blinking inside the base. He grabbed the scanner and ran. The perimeter fence was 10 meters of chain link topped with razor wire. No time for subtlety. Jason found a supply truck idling near the gate, driver gone, and climbed into the cab. The keys were still in the ignition. He'd never driven anything bigger than a maintenance cart. He turned the key. The engine roared. He slammed his foot down on what he hoped was the accelerator, and the truck lurched forward like a wounded animal. The gate was closed. He aimed for it and kept his foot down. The impact threw him against the steering wheel, ribs screaming. The gate tore free in a screech of metal, and suddenly he was outside the base, bouncing across open wasteland. Scanner clutched in one hand, other hand fighting the wheel. He tasted metal in his mouth, fear or blood, he couldn't tell. Shouts behind him, gunfire. Bullets sparked off the truck's armored sides. He didn't look back. The scanner showed Nia's group 400 meters ahead. The blue dots were almost on top of them. Jason pushed the truck harder, engine whining, suspension threatening to tear itself apart on the rocky terrain. 200 meters. Heat rippled off the flats. His vision wavered as if the world were breathing too fast. He could see them now. 3 figures running across a shallow ridge, exhaustion obvious in every movement. And behind them, Tyrant soldiers in formation, weapons raised. 100 meters. A soldier took aim. Jason saw the rifle steady, saw the finger tighten on the trigger. He yanked the wheel hard left, sending the truck into a skid directly into the soldier's line of fire. Bullets hammered the windshield, safety glass spiderwebbing. Jason ducked low, keeping his foot down. The truck hit something. A rock? A dip? A soldier? He couldn't tell, and went airborne for half a second before crashing down in an explosion of dust and metal. The impact knocked the air from Jason's lungs. The truck rolled once, twice, world spinning, until it finally stopped upside down. Jason hung in the seat, held by the restraints, head ringing. Blood dripped from somewhere on his face. He fumbled with the belt release, fell to the roof, now floor, and crawled through the shattered windshield. Outside, chaos. The truck had carved a line through the soldiers' formation, scattering them. Nia and the others were using the confusion to run. But more blue dots appeared on the scanner, still clutched in Jason's hand. Reinforcements from the base. A hand grabbed his collar, hauling him up. Sarya. Her face was a mask of blood and fury. You stupid, reckless! She shook him. What were you thinking? Saving you. You just painted a target on all of us. Nia appeared beside them, breathing hard. Argue later. Run now. They ran. Kess took point, signing frantically. Behind them, soldiers regrouped, shouting orders. Gunfire chased them across the ridge. Jason's legs burned. His lungs burned. Everything burned. There! Nia pointed at a cluster of rock formations ahead. Natural cover. They threw themselves into the gap between two massive boulders as bullets sparked off stone around them. The space was narrow, barely wide enough for 4 people, but it blocked line of sight from 3 directions. Sarya checked her weapon, some kind of energy rifle, half-charged. We've got maybe 2 minutes before they flank us. Then we make those 2 minutes count. Nia turned to Jason. How did you know where we were? He held up the scanner. Stole it. And the truck? Also stole it. Something like respect flickered across her face. You're full of surprises. I'm full of terrible decisions. Kess signed. Nia's expression went grim. She's right. We can't fight them all. We need a miracle. Jason studied the scanner. The blue dots were spreading out, surrounding their position. Standard containment pattern. In 3 minutes, there would be no way out. But there was something else on the scanner. A faint signature directly below them. Thermal reading, unstable. Like, there's a lava tube underneath us, he said. Sarya looked at him. A what? Old volcanic formation. The ground here is riddled with them. That's why Tyrannex never built permanent structures. Too unstable. Can we get into it? If we can find a crack wide enough, and if it doesn't collapse while we're inside, and if... I didn't ask for a list of ways we die. Sarya scanned the ground. I asked if we can use it. They searched frantically, running hands over rock, looking for any opening. Kess found it, a split in the stone, barely wide enough to fit through sideways. Darkness below, the smell of sulfur and old heat. Nia peered down. How far does it drop? Only one way to find out. Jason sat on the edge, legs dangling into nothing. Wait. Nia grabbed his arm. You're not going first. Someone has to. And if it's a dead end, if you fall and die, then we're trapped up here with no plan. He met her eyes. Do you have a better idea? She didn't. None of them did. Then trust me. Jason pulled free of her grip and dropped. The fall was shorter than expected, maybe 3 meters. He hit the ground hard, ankle twisting, pain shooting up his leg. But he was alive. The tube stretched in both directions, maybe 2 meters wide. Walls smooth and glassy from ancient heat. It's good, he called up. Come on. Sarya came next, landing with practiced ease. Then Kess. Nia was last, and Jason caught her as she dropped, steadying her. Thanks, she breathed. Above, voices shouted, boots on rock. The soldiers had reached their position. Move, Sarya hissed. They ran through the lava tube, feet pounding on stone that felt too thin, too fragile. The tube branched, twisted, dropped lower. Jason led them deeper, following instinct and the faint current of air that meant an exit somewhere ahead. Behind them, muffled gunfire. The soldiers had found the crack. Someone was coming after them. The tube narrowed. They had to crouch, then crawl. Jason's injured ankle screamed with every movement. The walls pressed close, closer. His breathing came quick and shallow. Not now, don't panic now. Then light ahead, real light, daylight. They scrambled toward it and emerged into a narrow canyon, walls rising 30 meters on either side. The storm had passed completely now. The sky was that particular shade of orange-red that meant midday on this world. Nia looked around. Where are we? Jason consulted the scanner, somehow still working despite everything. 5 kilometers north of the base. Canyon system. Runs for about... He stopped. Oh no. What? He showed her the screen. Blue dots. Dozens of them. Pouring into the canyon from both ends. They're boxing us in, Sarya said. Kess signed urgently. Nia nodded. She's right. They want us alive. That's why they haven't called an airstrike. Then we use that. Sarya checked her rifle charge. Make them think they can take us. Draw them close. And then what? Then we make them regret it. They found a defensible position, a cluster of fallen rocks near the canyon wall, offering cover and high ground. Not much, but better than nothing. Sarya and Kes took flanking positions. Nia stayed with Jason, checking his ankle. It's not broken, she said, wrapping it tight with strips torn from her sleeve. But you're not running on it anymore. Doesn't matter. Nowhere left to run. She looked at him, and something in her expression made his chest ache. Why did you come after us? You could have stayed in that cell, waited it out. They would have let you go eventually. Would they? Probably not. She almost smiled. But at least you'd be alive. I told you. I fixed what's broken. He touched her hand. And I broke this. I sent that signal. I brought them down on you. So I'm going to fix it. Jason! Footsteps echoed through the canyon. The soldiers were close. Sarya raised her rifle. Here they come. They emerged from both ends of the canyon, 2 squads, 20 soldiers total, moving in coordinated formation. Professional, efficient. They stopped 50 meters away, weapons trained but not firing. The captain from before stepped forward, amplified voice carrying across the space. You're surrounded. You're outgunned. This ends one of 2 ways. Come peacefully and I guarantee your safety during processing. Or die here and I guarantee nothing. Sarya called back. Define processing. Interrogation, trial, sentencing, standard military justice. We both know Tyrannex doesn't do trials. Then you have nothing to lose by surrendering. Nia stood, hands visible but not raised. Jason tried to pull her back down, but she shook him off. We're not interested in your justice, but I'll make you a deal. The captain waited. Let the mechanic go. He's not part of this. He was a hostage, like he said. You've got your real targets right here. Nia, what are you... Jason started. She cut him off with a look. To the captain. You want us alive. We want him alive. Seems like a fair trade. Jason grabbed her arm. No, no deals. I'm not leaving. You don't have a choice. She turned to him, and her eyes were bright with something that looked like tears but couldn't be. Huntresses didn't cry. You were never part of the storm. You were the calm. Remember that. She kissed him, quick, desperate, then pushed him away. Sarya, get him out of here. Sarya grabbed Jason from behind, arm around his throat, not choking but controlling. He struggled, but she was stronger, trained. I'm sorry, Sarya whispered in his ear. She dragged him backward, toward a side passage he hadn't noticed. Kes provided cover, firing controlled bursts that kept the soldiers pinned. Jason fought every step, but it was useless. His injured ankle gave out, and Sarya simply hauled him, one-armed like he weighed nothing. The last thing he saw was Nia standing alone in the center of the canyon, hands raised as soldiers closed in around her. Then Sarya threw him into the side passage, and the canyon disappeared. They ran, or rather Sarya ran, dragging Jason stumbling behind her. Kes brought up the rear, weapon ready. The passage twisted, climbed, finally emerged onto a plateau overlooking the canyon. From up here, Jason could see everything. The soldiers surrounding Nia, the captain stepping forward. The way Nia didn't resist as they bound her wrists, forced her to her knees. He tried to shout, but Sarya's hand covered his mouth. Don't! They'll hear you, and she'll have done this for nothing. Jason bit down on the rage and grief and guilt that filled his throat. Sarya held him until he stopped struggling, then slowly removed her hand. Why would she do this? He asked, voice cracking. Because she claimed you. What? Sarya's expression was complicated. In the storm, when we first came in, she said she saw you first. That's Huntress code. It means she answers for you. She's responsible for your life. That's insane. That's honor. Sarya turned away. Come on. We have to keep moving before they realize we're gone. I'm not leaving her. You don't have a choice. I'll go back. I'll tell them I escaped, that you couldn't hold me. They'll believe. They'll shoot you on sight. Sarya grabbed his shoulders, forced him to look at her. Nia gave you a gift, the most precious thing a huntress can give. Don't waste it. Kes touched Jason's arm, her expression gentle. She signed something slow, deliberate. Sarya translated, voice softer now. She says Nia knew what she was doing. She made her choice. Honor it by surviving. Jason looked back at the canyon. The soldiers were moving out. Nia in the center of their formation. Alive. Still breathing. But captive. He watched until they disappeared into the distance. Until there was nothing left but dust and heat shimmer, and the terrible ache in his chest that felt like something vital had been torn out. "Where do we go?" he asked finally. "East. There's a resistance cell 3 days from here. If we move fast, if we're careful," Sarya paused, "we might make it. And Nia, we'll find a way to get her back. I promise you that." But her voice carried no conviction. They both knew the truth. Once Tyrants took you, you didn't come back. Not in any way that mattered. They moved across the plateau as the sun climbed higher. 3 figures against an endless expanse of red rock and shattered dreams. Jason's ankle throbbed with every step, but he didn't complain. Pain was good. Pain meant he was still alive when Nia wasn't free. Hours passed in silence. Sarya led them through terrain that seemed impassable. Narrow ledges, crumbling slopes, gaps between rocks that required faith more than skill to cross. She moved like someone who'd spent a lifetime running, and maybe she had. When the sun began its descent, painting everything in shades of copper and shadow, Sarya finally called a halt. They made camp in the shelter of an overhanging rock face. No fire, no light, just 3 bodies huddled against the cooling air. Kes distributed their remaining supplies, water, protein bars that tasted like cardboard, and regret. Jason forced himself to eat, though his stomach wanted to reject everything. "Tell me about the resistance," he said. Sarya chewed slowly before answering. "They're what's left of the original colonists, before Tyrant came, before this world became a mining operation masquerading as civilization." "How many?" "Hard to say. Cells operate independently. Maybe a few hundred scattered across the wasteland. Maybe more. We don't exactly take roll call." "And they can help get Nia back?" Sarya met his eyes. "They can try. That's all I can promise." Jason nodded. It would have to be enough. They slept in shifts, 2 awake while 1 rested. When Jason's watch came, he sat with his back against cold stone and watched the stars wheel overhead. Different constellations than Earth, different sky, different world. But the loneliness felt exactly the same. Kes was on watch with him. She sat a few meters away, weapon across her lap, eyes scanning the darkness. After a long silence, she pulled out a small device, some kind of portable data pad, screen cracked but functional, and typed something. She turned it toward Jason. The words glowed blue in the darkness. "She talked about you, after the storm started, before we reached your hut." Jason stared at the screen. "What did she say?" Kes typed. "That she saw someone through her scope, working on the antenna, completely focused, like the storm didn't exist, like he couldn't be distracted from fixing things even if the world ended around him. She said that kind of focus was rare, worth protecting. I was just doing my job. That's what she liked. No heroics, no glory. Just someone who does what needs doing." Kes paused, fingers hovering over the screen. Then, "She was going to ask if you wanted to leave with us, before everything went wrong." Jason felt something crack inside his chest. "Leave where?" "The wasteland, the fighting, all of it. There are places beyond Tyrannex's reach. Not many, not safe, but they exist." Kes looked at him. "She thought maybe you'd want that. A fresh start. With her. She barely knew me. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes you see someone, and you just know." Kes turned off the datapad. She knew. Jason sat with that information, turning it over in his mind like a piece of broken machinery he couldn't quite understand. Nia had seen something in him, something worth claiming, worth protecting, worth dying for, and he'd let her walk into captivity. No, she'd chosen it, given him that choice as a gift. But gifts could be returned, debts could be repaid. He just had to figure out how. Dawn came too quickly. They packed up and moved out, heading east into terrain that grew progressively more hostile. The rock gave way to loose sand that sucked at their feet, made every step an effort. The temperature climbed. By midday, the heat was a physical weight pressing down on them. Jason's water ran out first. Sarya shared hers without comment. Kess ranged ahead, scouting, her scarred face set in permanent determination. They were crossing a dry wash when Kess suddenly froze, hand raised in a fist. Sarya dropped immediately, pulling Jason down with her. They lay flat against the sand, barely breathing. A sound, low, rhythmic. Engines. Jason lifted his head enough to see. A Tyrings patrol. 2 vehicles moving slow, kicking up dust. Searching. They're sweeping the area, Sarya whispered, looking for us. How did they know which direction we went? They didn't. They're covering everything within 100 clicks. Standard procedure after a breach. She watched the vehicles pass. We need to move faster. Get to the resistance before the net closes. They waited until the patrol was gone, then ran. No more careful progress. No more stealth. Just speed and desperation, and the knowledge that Tyrant X was hunting them with every resource at their disposal. By evening, Jason's legs felt like they'd been replaced with broken metal. His ankle had swollen to twice its normal size. Every step sent lightning up his spine. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Stopping meant capture. Capture meant never seeing Nia again. They crested a ridge as the sun touched the horizon and saw it. A settlement. Small. Maybe 20 structures scattered across a valley. Smoke rising from cooking fires. People moving between buildings. The resistance. Finally, Sarya breathed. They made their way down the ridge as darkness fell. Sentries challenged them before they reached the valley floor. Armed figures emerging from the shadows. Weapons trained and ready. Sarya, one of them said, lowering her rifle. We thought you were dead. Not yet. Sarya gestured at Jason. We've got a complication. The sentry studied Jason with undisguised suspicion. He's corporate. He was. Now he's with us. That's not how it works. He saved our lives. Twice. That's exactly how it works. Sarya's voice went hard. Take us to Mara. She'll want to hear about the ambush. The sentry hesitated, then nodded. Follow me. They were led through the settlement, past curious stares and hostile glares, to the largest building. Inside, oil lamps cast flickering light over a planning table covered in maps and intelligence reports. A woman stood bent over them, gray-streaked hair pulled back, burn scars covering half her face. She looked up as they entered. Sarya, where's Nia? Sarya's expression answered before her words did. Captured. Yesterday. Tyrannex has her. Mara closed her eyes briefly. How? Sarya explained. The storm, Jason's hut, the beacon, the ambush, Nia's sacrifice. All of it. When she finished, silence filled the room like a living thing. Mara turned to Jason. You're the mechanic. Yes. The one who sent the signal that got my people killed. It was an accident. The system. I don't care if it was an accident. Mara moved around the table, and Jason saw the weapon on her hip, the way her hand rested near it. 3 of my best people went into that storm. Only 2 came back. Because of you. Because of Tyrannex, Jason said. Because of their technology, their systems, their war. I'm just someone who got caught in the middle. Everyone's caught in the middle. That's not an excuse. I'm not making excuses. I'm telling you what happened. Jason stepped forward, ignoring Sarya's warning hand on his arm. And I'm telling you I want to fix it. Help me get Nia back. Mara laughed, but there was no humor in it. Get her back. Do you have any idea where Tyrings took her? No. Do you have any idea what they're doing to her right now? The interrogation? The torture? Jason's jaw tightened. That's why we need to move fast. We don't even know which facility she's in. Tyrants has 40 black sites scattered across this continent. She could be in any of them. Or already dead. She's not dead. They wanted her alive. For interrogation. Once they have what they need, Mara made a cutting gesture. Then we find her before they're done. With what resources? What intelligence? What plan? Mara shook her head. I'm sorry, mechanic. I know you care. But caring doesn't win battles. It doesn't bring people back. Jason felt something snap inside him. The exhaustion, the pain, the guilt. all of it crystallized into cold, clear fury. "You're right," he said. "Caring doesn't win battles, but I know something that does. Information. And I've got plenty of that." Mara raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "I worked for Tyrant X for 8 years. Communications, security protocols, facility layouts. I know how they think, how they operate, where they're vulnerable." Jason pulled out the scanner, somehow still in his pocket, still working. "And I've got access to their tactical network. Limited, but enough. Enough to find where they took Nia, enough to find a way in. And a way out? That's the hard part. That's the only part that matters." But Mara was studying him differently now, calculating. "Show me what you've got." Jason brought up the scanner's interface, navigated through layers of encrypted data. It took him 20 minutes, hacking protocols he'd helped design, exploiting backdoors he'd installed for maintenance purposes years ago. But finally he found it. A transport manifest. Dated yesterday. 3 prisoners transferred from Forward Base Epsilon to Processing Center 7. "There," he said, pointing at the screen. "That's her." Mara leaned in, reading. Her scarred face showed nothing. "Processing Center 7. That's a hard facility. Maximum security. They keep high-value assets there. Can we reach it?" "It's 200 kilometers south, through Tyrant X-controlled territory, past 3 checkpoints and a major supply depot." She straightened. "It would take an army. We don't have an army." "Then we use what we do have." Jason looked at Sarya. "You said the Resistance has cells everywhere. How many can you mobilize? For a suicide mission? Not enough. Not suicide. Precision." Jason turned back to the scanner, pulling up facility schematics. Processing Center 7 was built on an old mining operation. I worked there during construction. I know the layout. I know the weak points. He traced a line on the map. The waste management system runs underground, connects to the old mine shafts. Tyrant X has sealed most of it, but not all. There's an access tunnel here. He pointed. Maintenance hatch, poorly monitored because it floods during rain season. We go in there, we bypass 90% of their security. Mara studied the map. And the other 10%? That's where it gets interesting. Jason pulled up another layer. Power distribution. The facility runs on a centralized reactor. Take that offline, and their systems fail. Cameras, locks, climate control, everything. They have backup generators, which take 90 seconds to kick in. That's our window. 90 seconds to get in, find 1 prisoner among hundreds, and get out. Sarya shook her head. That's impossible. No, that's just really difficult. Jason met her eyes. And I owe Nia my life, so I'm willing to try really difficult. Silence. Then Kess signed something. Sarya translated, voice careful. She says she's in. Nia's her sister. Blood or not, she's in. Mara looked between them. You're all insane. Probably, Jason agreed. Are you going to help us or not? Another long silence. Then Mara smiled. Sharp, dangerous, the expression of someone who'd been fighting losing battles for so long that one more didn't matter. I'm going to regret this, she said. But yes, I'll help. On one condition. Name it. You get Nia out, you get anyone else you can reach out to. We've lost too many people to those facilities. This isn't just a rescue. It's a statement. Her eyes glinted in the lamplight. We're going to make Tyrant X bleed. They planned through the night. Mara called in favors from other cells, assembled a team of 20 fighters, everyone they could spare without leaving the settlement defenseless. They gathered weapons, equipment, intelligence. Jason worked with their tech specialists, hacking deeper into Tyrant X's network, building a complete picture of the facility's security. The more he saw, the worse it looked. Processing Center 7 wasn't just a prison, it was a laboratory, a place where Tyrant X conducted experiments on prisoners, testing everything from interrogation drugs to behavioral modification techniques. If Nia was in there, she wasn't just being held, she was being broken. Jason pushed the thought away and kept working. Emotions were a liability. Focus was survival. He'd learned that maintaining equipment in the wasteland, he'd apply it to this. By dawn, they had a plan. Risky, complicated, about a dozen points where everything could go catastrophically wrong. But it was a plan. They loaded into vehicles, old transports, patched and repainted, nothing that would draw attention, and rolled out as the sun rose. 22 people. One goal. No guarantee any of them would come back. Jason sat in the back of the lead transport, checking his equipment for the 20th time. Sarya sat across from him, cleaning her rifle with methodical precision. "You know this is suicide," she said without looking up. "So you've mentioned. Just want to make sure you understand. We go in there, we're probably not coming out. Then we make it count." She looked at him finally. "Nia was right about you. You're either very brave or very stupid. You said that before. Which do you think it is?" "Both." She smiled grimly. "That's what makes you dangerous." They drove through the day, taking routes that avoided major Tyrannex presence, stopping only when necessary. Jason watched the wasteland roll past through the window. Endless red sand, broken rock, the occasional skeleton of pre-war technology rusting in the sun. This world had been beautiful once, supposedly, before the mining, before the war, before people like him came and took everything that mattered. By evening, they reached a ridge overlooking Processing Center 7. The facility sprawled across 5 square kilometers. Concrete bunkers, guard towers, high walls topped with automated weapons. Floodlights illuminated everything, turning night into artificial day. Patrols moved in precise patterns. Drones circled overhead. "It looks worse than the schematics suggested," Mara muttered. "It always does," Jason said, "but the fundamentals are the same. We hit the waste system access here." He pointed at a spot on the eastern perimeter. "Team 2 causes a distraction at the main gate, draws their attention. We go in during the confusion." "And the reactor? I'll handle it. Give me 5 minutes inside, I can shut down their entire grid." "And if you can't?" Jason didn't answer. Because if he couldn't, they were all dead. Simple as that. They waited for full dark, then moved into position. Jason went with the primary assault team. Him, Sarya, Kess, and 5 others. The distraction team circled around to the north. Everyone knew their role. Everyone knew the stakes. Jason's heart hammered against his ribs as they approached the access tunnel. It was exactly where the schematics said it would be. A rusted hatch half buried in sand, marked with faded warning symbols. He worked the lock with tools Mara's people had provided, hands steady despite everything. The hatch opened with a groan that seemed impossibly loud. Below, darkness and the smell of chemicals and decay. Sarya dropped in first, weapon ready. Jason followed, feet hitting the metal walkway with a dull clang. The others came after, and then they were all inside, hatch sealed above them. The tunnel stretched ahead, lit by emergency strips that cast everything in sickly green. Water dripped from pipes overhead. Something skittered in the shadows. Rats, probably, or whatever passed for rats on this world. They moved in single file, weapons raised. Every sound felt amplified. Every shadow threatened ambush. But the tunnel was empty. Tyrings had grown complacent, lazy. They'd assumed no one would be crazy enough to try this. They'd assumed wrong. The tunnel opened into a junction chamber, 6 pipes converging, a maintenance access ladder leading up. Jason checked the scanner. The reactor room was 3 levels above them. "This is where we split," he whispered. "Sarya, take your team to the detention block. I'll handle the reactor. We meet back here in exactly 15 minutes. And if you're not back, then get out without me." Sarya grabbed his arm. "Jason, I know, be careful. Don't die. All of that." He managed a smile. "See you in 15. He climbed before she could argue, ascending through darkness and rust and pipes that hummed with power. The ladder seemed endless. His arms burned. His ankle screamed. But he climbed. The access hatch at the top opened into a maintenance corridor. Brighter here. Jason could hear voices, footsteps, the general noise of a facility at night. Reduced staff, but not empty. Never empty. He moved quickly, following the route he'd memorized. 2 corridors, 3 turns, past a checkpoint manned by a single guard who was more interested in his data pad than his job. Into a service stairwell. Up 2 more flights. The reactor room door stood at the end of a long hallway. Locked. Naturally. But Jason had spent 8 years learning Tyring security systems. He had the door open in 90 seconds. Inside, the reactor hummed, a massive cylinder of metal and force fields, feeding power to the entire facility. Control panels lined the walls, displaying data streams Jason could read like his native language. He got to work. Shutting down a reactor safely took hours. Doing it dangerously took 90 seconds. Jason went for dangerous. He bypassed safety protocols, rerouted power conduits, fed false data to the monitoring systems. The reactor's hum changed pitch, rising from a purr to an angry whine. Alarms shrieked. Red lights flooded the room. In the detention block, Sarya heard the alarms and moved. She'd been waiting at the edge of the cell block, watching guards scramble in confusion as lights flickered. Now, as everything went dark except emergency lighting, she and her team rushed forward. The electronic locks failed. Cells' doors slid open. Prisoners emerged, confused, terrified, hopeful. Sarya scanned faces, looking for one in particular. "Nia!" she shouted. "Nia, where are you?" A voice, weak but familiar. "Here!" Sarya ran toward it, the cell at the end of the block. And there she was, Nia, slumped against the wall, face bruised, one eye swollen shut, but alive, breathing, conscious. "I knew you'd come," Nia whispered. "Can you walk?" "I can run if I have to." Sarya hauled her up, supporting her weight. Kess appeared beside them, signing frantically. More prisoners were flooding the corridors now, hundreds of them, all heading for any exit they could find. Chaos. Perfect chaos. They joined the flood, using the massive bodies as cover. Guards fired into the crowd, but there were too many targets, too much confusion. The resistance fighters returned fire, creating corridors of escape. In the reactor room, Jason finished his work. The reactor was in full meltdown now. Not nuclear, not dangerous to anyone outside the immediate facility, but catastrophic enough. He set the final sequence and ran. He made it 3 steps before someone grabbed him from behind. The captain, the same one from the forward base. Her face twisted with fury. "You!" she spat. "You did this!" Jason didn't answer, just drove his elbow back into her ribs, twisted free, and ran. She fired after him, bullets sparking off metal, but he was already around the corner, already moving. He hit the maintenance corridor at full sprint. Ankle forgotten, pain forgotten. Everything forgotten except the need to reach the extraction point. Behind him, the facility was tearing itself apart. Prisoners rioting, guards overwhelmed, systems failing. Perfect chaos. He reached the junction chamber. Sarya was there, supporting Nia. Kess was there. 5 other resistance fighters, and a dozen prisoners who'd followed them, desperate for any chance at freedom. "Go!" Jason shouted. "Everyone move!" They poured into the waste tunnel, sliding and stumbling in the dark. Jason brought up the rear, sealing hatches behind them as they went. The facility's roar faded to a muffled thump, then silence, then just their breathing and footsteps. They emerged into the wasteland under a sky full of stars. Behind them, Processing Center 7 burned, not literally, but metaphorically. Lights flickering, alarms wailing, guards pouring out, trying to contain the damage. The resistance vehicles were waiting, engines running. Everyone piled in. Jason collapsed into a seat, chest heaving, adrenaline crash hitting him like a physical blow. Nia was across from him, supported by Sarya and Kess. Her eyes found his through the dim interior light. "You came for me," she said. "I told you. I fix what's broken." "I'm not broken." "Then I complete what's unfinished." Jason smiled. "How's that?" She tried to laugh, but it turned into a cough that made her wince. "Better." The vehicles pulled away from the facility, heading into the deep wasteland where even Tyrannex's surveillance couldn't follow. Jason watched Processing Center 7 recede in the distance, its lights like dying stars. "We did it," Sarya said, sounding surprised. "We survived," Mara corrected from the driver's seat. "That's not the same as winning." "It is for today." They drove through the night, putting distance between themselves and Tyrannex's territory. The freed prisoners sat in shocked silence, processing freedom like a foreign language. Some cried, some stared at nothing, some whispered prayers to gods Jason didn't know. As dawn broke, they stopped to rest and redistribute resources. Jason found Nia sitting apart from the group, staring at the horizon. He sat beside her without speaking. After a long silence, she said, "They wanted information about resistance cells, locations, numbers, supply routes. Did you tell them? I told them lies mixed with enough truth that they believed me. Sent them looking in empty desert. Gave them coordinates to abandoned sites. She looked at him. They'll figure it out eventually. When they do, they'll come harder than before. Then we'll be ready. Will we? Nia's voice was soft, hollow. I saw what they're building in there, Jason. New weapons, new strategies. They're not just trying to pacify the resistance anymore. They're trying to erase it, make it like we never existed. They can try. They'll succeed. Eventually. She closed her eyes. We're fighting a war we can't win. All we can do is make it cost them. Make them remember we were here, that we mattered. Jason wanted to argue, wanted to tell her they could win, that there was hope, that everything would be okay. But he'd never been good at lying. So instead, he just sat with her as the sun rose over the wasteland, painting everything in shades of amber and gold. When they reached the resistance settlement that evening, the welcome was subdued. Too many people hadn't come back. Empty spaces at the fire, absent faces. The freed prisoners were a victory, yes, 40 lives saved. But the cost had been high. 5 resistance fighters dead, 3 more wounded badly enough that they might not recover. Mara gathered everyone that night in the central building. She stood before them, scarred face lit by firelight, and her voice carried across the silence. Today we struck a blow against Tyrannex. We freed our people. We showed them that we're not broken, that we can still fight. She paused. But we also lost. We always lose. Because they have everything. Resources, weapons, numbers. And we have nothing but our refusal to surrender. She looked at Jason. But sometimes nothing is enough. Sometimes one person who refuses to stop, who refuses to accept that things are broken beyond repair. Sometimes that's enough to change everything. Jason felt everyone's eyes on him. He wanted to disappear. He was just a mechanic. He fixed things. That's all he knew how to do. But maybe in a world this broken, that was exactly what was needed. The meeting dispersed. People drifted away to their duties or their grief. Jason found Nia in the medical tent, getting her injuries properly treated. He waited outside until the medic finished, then followed her as she limped toward the edge of the settlement. You're going to hurt yourself more walking like that, he said. Pain reminds me I'm alive. So does breathing. Breathing hurts less. She smiled faintly. You sound like a mechanic. I am a mechanic. They reached the perimeter, nothing but open wasteland stretching forever. Nia sat on a rock outcropping, and Jason joined her. Above them, the alien stars wheeled in their eternal dance. Thank you, Nia said finally, for coming after me. You gave me a choice. I'm just returning it. That's not how it works. When a huntress claims someone, the debt only goes one way. Then we're changing the rules. Jason pulled something from his pocket, his mechanic's wrist bracelet, the one she'd worn briefly before. You dropped this. During the storm. She stared at it. It broke. I fixed it. That's what I do, remember? Nia took the bracelet, turning it over in her hands. The metal gleamed dully in the starlight. If I wear this again, then you're acknowledging that we're even, that neither of us owes the other anything, that we're just 2 people who decided not to let each other die. He met her eyes. Is that acceptable? She slipped the bracelet onto her wrist. It'll do. They sat together in comfortable silence as the night deepened. Somewhere in the distance, a storm was building. Jason could see the lightning on the horizon, feel the change in air pressure. But it was far away. Hours yet before it reached them. What now? Nia asked. Now we sleep, rest, heal. I mean after. What do we do after? Jason thought about the wasteland, about Tyrannex, about all the broken things scattered across this world that would never be fixed, about all the people who needed someone to fight for them. We keep going, he said. We fix what we can. We fight when we have to. We survive. That's not much of a plan. It's the only one I've got. Nia leaned against him, head on his shoulder. Her voice was barely a whisper. Then I guess it'll have to be enough. The storm moved closer. The wind picked up, carrying sand and the promise of rain. But Jason didn't move. Neither did Nia. They sat together at the edge of the wasteland, 2 people who'd found each other in the chaos, and watched the lightning crawl across the sky. Behind them, the settlement settled into uneasy rest. Around them, the desert breathed, Above them, stars burned with ancient light, and somewhere in the darkness, in the spaces between the storm and the silence, the future waited, uncertain, dangerous but alive with possibility. Jason closed his eyes and felt the wind on his face. The storm was coming. It would always be coming. But for now, for this moment, there was calm. The wind shifted. For a heartbeat, it sounded like her breath. And that was enough.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.